I fear you might have already answered this one too. I have a standard question which I ask every week.
Yeah.
What's the best advice you've ever had?
Oh, okay. So the best advice that I get is very pertinent to me. Don't question past decisions that you've made, because when you made it with the best
Hmm.
information that you had at that time. It's very easy to go afterwards and go, oh, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, because now hindsight's 2020, and I constantly beat myself up about stuff. So it was a really excellent piece of advice. Another one that I love that I'm still working on, but um, and we talked about bosses earlier, but people forget what you say. People never forget how you made them feel.
Hmm.
And I think this is a really powerful one in terms of leadership. And I thought that was a good one that I received in the past.
Yeah, that's cool. I agree with both. I have nothing more to give. It was when you were saying before about how to your younger self or to your nephews or nieces or whatever, just take
Yeah.
risks. Don't be afraid to do stuff. And I think the big
Yeah.
thing for me is that I've taken some ballsy moves in the past. So for instance, I was working overseas in the big project, to everyone else, it looked like a dream job. 24, living in Kingston, Jamaica, doing all this stuff in the
Yeah.
Caribbean. And I was
Yeah.
miserable. I absolutely hated it. And then to literally quit, go back to be a student again back at Sheffield. There is another story because there was a girl I was trying to win back who's now my wife. But anyway, but that was the other reason. But the point is, a lot of people were like, what the hell are you doing? And what was also
Yeah.
interesting is that I'm a basketball player. One of the guys that was in the year below me at university who went to Bank of America, so again, very talented kind of guy. We knew each other from playing sport together, but we didn't know each other like super, super well. Whilst I'd told people that I was going to leave Jamaica, he actually sent me an email, and this was when Facebook was new. This is like,
Right.
2007, 8. I said, look, Steve, I think you're making a big mistake. I think, you should stick it out and really kind of go for it. And I was honest with him, said, look, obviously, you don't know what it's like here, but fair enough. Fast forward a year, and he had since started at Bank of America, and he had this idea in investment banking about what he was going to do, how it's going to work, what the lifestyle was going to be like. And it turns out that within 6 months, it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. The hours were just like ridiculous.
Right.
His now wife, obviously, he wasn't really getting to see her. And what was really nice, because he didn't have to, he actually sent me an email and apologized, because you never know what someone else is going through.
Right.
Even if to the outside it looks brilliant, it can be a
Yes.
challenge. But the point is, he is now a really successful energy broker in Norway. But the point is, only you know if it's not right, and then it's you that makes the call to say, look, I'm going to change. But
Yeah.
to everyone else, the parents, the whoever, they might say, what are you doing, you're crazy. But you
Yeah.
need that conviction to follow your heart. But for me, if you kind of do things with the right intention, so you do it for the right reasons, and you just do your best. Touch some wood for both of us, for everyone. The hope
Yeah.
is it turns out for the best. That some of the kind of career pivots and stuff that I've done, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be doing now with you talking about this if
Right.
those hadn't have happened. Does that make sense? And it's almost where I 100% agree with what you're saying. It's just, take risks, just follow your heart, even if it doesn't
Yeah.
work out, see what happens.
Correct. And it gets more difficult when you get older.
I
The
agree.
the appetite for risk taking is much higher when you're younger, right? So do that early, and then when you find you've done it, it's not so hard to pick yourself up. What gets really difficult is when you've so for example, I was at Mintel for 10 years, and I did lots of different things at Mintel, and I loved it. I still love the company. Met someone there a few weeks ago for lunch, actually, so we're still very much in contact with the team there. But when I realized, gosh, I've been here for 10 months, and I realized for 10 years, I was scared to leave.
Hmm.
That was when I knew, okay, oh gosh, I've actually got to leave now, because I'm terrified of leaving. And that was an impetus for me to move on to my next journey. But yeah, I would say taking risk would be an advice I'd give 100% to others.
I've got to ask you, what's the dream? Just, fast forward, pick a year, 20 years from
Yeah.
where do you hope to be? Like, we were talking about visualization before, those positive vibes, putting it out there. Because again, the beauty of this, when it all goes onto YouTube, touch it, unless YouTube fails, it's going to be there, and it's the ability to look back in 10 years time and go, I remember we hadn't even properly launched Pod yet, and now it's done this. What's the dream for you?
Oh, yes. So the dream would be I'd be back in Malaysia. My brother and I are working on a project to tackle recycling. Recycling is a topic very close to my heart. And I'd love for us to be in a place where we are making headway with that. I'd love for Global Teacher to be a phenomenon across the world. I'd love for tremendous impact to have been made and strides made with digital education across the world. So, but I would like to see myself back home in Malaysia and reunited with my family. Been away from home for a long time, and the Dane is very happy at the prospect of living in a tropical, sunshiny place. So.
No, I do love Malaysia, and it's just I love to ask because likewise, touch some wood if we stay in touch. You often don't realize that the progress you've made yourself because you were in it all day every day. Yes. It's part of the reason this is just I don't write a written journal, but I do videos. But it's almost I just love the ability to look back and then celebrate other people when they've done stuff that they. And in a few years' time, when you've nailed recycling and everything else, I'll get you back on and we'll talk about it.
Absolutely. Now, if you had asked me what advice I'd give my younger self, because you asked this to some of your guests, what I would have said was, I wish I had kept a diary. I wish I had kept a diary of all of those trips and adventures, and even what seemed really boring everyday things. So I guess it's a note to myself that it's never too late. I need to start keeping a diary now.
Do you take photos?
I do. I take photos, quite a lot of photos, but I'm thinking about those days when, when I was 25, 26 with my Nokia phone. This was in 2002, and a Nokia phone that worked everywhere in the world. There was no photo taking with that Nokia phone, sadly. So why do you ask about photos?
Well, so I'm one of these people that I've always been into my cameras, hence why I learned how to do this, because I've always been into it. But actually, rightly or wrongly, on my multiple backup hard drives, I've probably got 200,000 photos.
Wow.
From everything. But even, for instance, on the businessy type stuff, I take photos of the little milestones. So the first time I sent a pack to anywhere overseas, and I use it, and I have them all journaled, so that I'm sure you've seen the photo of Jeff Bezos with his door desk, and it's Amazon was just a spray painted sign and stuff. I try and do that you can't see it, but I've got I ordered a big neon sign I've got a rebrand coming, and it's going to go on that wall behind me. But just, I was unpacking it before, and I journal everything because I love to look back, and I've got photos from, I'm not going to say my whole life, but kind of, and it's just because I have a very visual memory, but I love it. So for instance, I take snapshots of like stuff that to anyone else would say, what the hell is that? But to me, I love it.
But you know what it is. Yeah.
But
I love it. Yeah. I think taking photos are a great way to keep track. And I think ever since I've had a smartphone, I've taken lots of photos to commemorate. I think it's the earlier years. I used to take a giant digital SLR with me because I love taking photos, but then I realized it did make me look like a tourist in many of these places, and I wanted to be more discreet. So I swapped that with a small digital camera.
Can I let you into a little secret? And this is as someone that has spent a fortune on digital cameras. I've got two in front of me that are very expensive.
Yeah.
Nowadays, modern iPhones, the cameras are so good.
Good.
Just take your phone. Honestly, no embarrassment, whatever. Yes, there's a fun in doing it in full manual and whatever. But the truth is, for most daylight applications, or even now with the new ones, your phone is better than you spend $5,000 on a camera. So it's guilt-free. You're good to go. But no, genuinely, I appreciate your time and everything. Is there anything else you would like to plug before we go?
I think please do have a look at nailbiter.co. And if there's interest in contributing to the mission, please do reach out. Happy to answer any questions.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time.
Did I say nailbiter?
You did?
I meant to say globalteacher.co. My apologies.
I was going to just smooth over. But the thing is, like, realistically, we're both human. Okay, you're at home, I've got an office. But the point is, like, when we talk about, it's a Brene Brown thing, but almost vulnerability, but it's the fact that we're real people, that when things go wrong, when my Wi-Fi cuts out 4 minutes into an interview,
Yeah.
when it doesn't matter. It's a first world problem that I used to worry, the sound wasn't quite as good on this week's podcast. Nobody cares. It's about for me, someone, even just two people discovering you, maybe a little bit about a global teacher, that just raises awareness to go, oh, that's quite cool. I'll check that out. And for me, that is the win. That I also completely selfishly love to build relationships with different people, just to get a feel for, because there's a big difference when you interact with people, but you don't really know their story and what drives them. But when you get to discover that about people, it can just transform everything that you think about someone. That I enjoy. I love it. Hence why I've kind of job crafted my own job to just do the stuff that I enjoy and talk
I
to
love
people.
it.
So it's cool.
And I've loved getting to know you too, Steve. This was really lovely. And I love that you shared a little bit of your journey too, because it was really nice to hear how you've come along this path as well. It was really lovely.
But on that point, I say this every week, but one of my big pet peeves is that, especially on social media, too many people try and be perfect, and they want it to be this perfectly polished version of themselves, or when things go wrong, they ignore it or they sugarcoat it. And one of the big things that I'm passionate about is that you have a lot of people out there on their own journey, career-wise or business-wise, and it's not going as well as they hoped. But all they ever see is other people pretending everything's perfect. And it's heartbreaking. A lot of people struggle with mental health. And it's just, if they know that other people struggle as well and what they're trying to do, and they're, like when we were talking about before, when, it's happened so many times, but when I left Jamaica to go back and do a PhD, and then later on when I, left that to move to the northeast of England, there's been loads of times through my life where you've had to make a gut decision, which was horrible, but I wouldn't change it now.
That's right.
But you never know that. It's almost, if anyone is watching this who's going through a really shitty time, it could be to do with COVID, it could be to do anything.
Yeah.
It's having faith that as long as you try your best, you just reach out, talk to people, network, touch some words, it'll work out, which is cool. And that's why I like to talk, for one, just, but I always try and be honest as well, just about stuff as well.